Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Free Thought Forum, brought to you by the friendly folks at Pennsylvania Nonbelievers, also known as PAN. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to education and to the separation of church and state issues. We also serve as a beacon of hope and enlightenment for those non-religious people are out there that think they are alone in a religious world and feel somewhat ganged up upon. I'm quite sure that the religious folk feel the same way about us, but our cause is chaste and pure, whereas others are not. We are the good guys. Tonight's show, it'll sort of be a little mishmash of a lot of different little things. I had some technical problems preparing the script for the show, and some other technical problems. So what I'd intended to have on tonight is not really, well, it's not available. I was reading the newspaper, Sunday's newspaper, this past Sunday's, and they had a story in it, and I understand that it is the second time that it has actually been printed, about a local gentleman that I guess got quite sick, and he wound up losing some of his limbs. Okay, and they call it a touch of faith. And whenever I read stories like this, you know, I'm not knocking the people that have got the faith, especially when something, you know, horrendous like this happens. Sometimes it seems that's all you have to cling to. Let me read a little bit. When Paul Miller got sick, doctors took his hands and feet to save his life. He and his wife drew on their faith to overcome. But could they recapture something lost? As Paul Miller raises his arm to God as he and his wife, Shelley, are greeted by the members of the Still Meadow Church of the Nazarene in Manchester Township. Miller was struck with a bacterial infection in February that was so severe that he nearly died. The only thing that really gets me about this is that, you know, they're thanking God for saving his life, and I imagine they did a lot of praying. And they, you know, they credit God as saving his life. Well, you know, we could go at it somewhat negatively and say, well, you know, why didn't God step in earlier? Why didn't he you know, put a little word in his ear? Hey, you should go to the hospital. But the thing that intrigues me about this type of story, when they say that, you know, faith and belief and prayer saved a person's life, they never ever give credit to the doctors. I mean, somewhere in that whole mess, the doctors could see that going at his current rate of deterioration, that with this bacterial infection, that if they hadn't amputated his hands and his legs, that the infection was going to totally consume him and eventually kill him. So I think that it'd be only fair that if a person is, going to be giving thanks to God, that they also throw in a little, like, thanks to the doctor. Yeah, okay, God, we appreciate any assistance that you can have, but seeing it was the doctors that physically saved his life, then they should get some credit too. I remember a while back, a couple of years ago, I went into complete renal shutdown. And my liver and my kidneys and everything stopped. And it was a lucky thing that I decided to go to the hospital. I'd been out in Long Island, and I'd been driving back. The air conditioner in my car was broken, and, working up a sweat, as it were. It was so hot that it melted my little plastic calculator that I had on the seat beside me. But when they immediately accepted me into the emergency care unit, they told me that you're in terrible shape, and there was a possibility that I could have died. But they did tell me that if I had done what I had intentionally intended doing, was driving the extra 5 miles to my house, maybe going and taking a shower and then coming back to the hospital, that I would have never woken up from the nap, but was kind of peculiar in a way. The following day, after they put all the IVs and everything in me, and the catheters and taking blood, it seems like every 5 minutes, telling you to sleep like that, but waking you up every 10 minutes to do some test. This woman walked in from the chaplain's office, and she asked me if I would like her to pray with me. Now, I'm quite sure that she didn't realize that I really was a non-believer, but it was a little humorous, and at the time, and even when I'm sick, I still tend to keep my sense of humor. And when she said that to me, I simply replied that if I need to pray to a God to save my life, then I need to get a different doctor. Yeah, I thought it was kind of cute at the time, but just the automatic thought that, oh, you're sick, we and the people around you should start praying. I don't necessarily agree with that. But this is just something that I was throwing in. We've got a couple of other little things here which I thought was interesting. I'm quite sure that everyone has heard of the company Costco. Right? It's like one of the big members-only Walmart things. Well, anyway, just before November the 18th of this year, they did, by many people's accounts, a no-no. I wish I'd remembered to tell our technician to load it up. But what Costco did, of course, of all their books, they label the books with what it is. Science, adventure, drama, religious, or fiction, along with the price. And Costco put out like a few 100,000 Bibles and sent them to all their stores, and they had it labeled as fiction. Now, of course, every non-believer out there really got a kick out of it. It's not really known whether or not the people that put the stickers on the thing were, playing a practical joke, or if it was just an oversight. But most atheists and agnostics and everything, one of our primary statements that we make is that the Bible is in fact fiction. It was written by man, and it is a compilation of man's ideas of what life would be like if in their own personal holiest moment that they sort of pictured themselves as God, and what would they want to say in order for them to inform the public and the followers and everything how to lead an upstanding life. I think that we all tend to judge others either one way or another. Most people do view others and judge them with a certain amount of scorn, and we always seem to have a neon halo above our own heads, and it's you basically can't get away from it. A lot of us don't like to look at our own shortcomings, but we know what the way things should be, and we know what God would like us to be like. So therefore it's very easy to put that into writing and say, okay, this is the Bible, and this is what God told me that I should inform all the other unwashed masses out there. This is the way that I, being God, want them to act. And don't forget that this is a live TV show. It is a call-in show. We do have a 7-second delay from the time that you speak into your telephone to the time that you would actually hear it on the television, and that can be quite confusing at times, because you'll say hello and you won't hear anything on the TV. So we always advise that you turn the volume on your television down if you should decide to call up with questions or comments or anything. The number should be on your screen, and we welcome any call, and we'd be pleased to talk to anyone. But anyway, getting back to Costco, and it's labeling the Bible as fiction. There were several like pastors and priests and other religious clergy that really took offense at it. And they wrote letters to the publisher and to Costco and everything, saying, you know, what is this fiction? You know, we are highly insulted. Well, I guess that the person at Costco in their public relations department kind of, there's a picture up there, kind of blew off the person and sort of minimized it and said, yeah, look, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. Yeah. But the thing is that I guess that the people that called up and complained about it really wanted the people that were in their customer service to take possession of it. And they told the person calling the pastor up, yeah, it had been corrected. Well, he was a little bit miffed, the pastor, when he checked with the Costco and some other Costcos through some contacts that he had, that the sticker was still on it. Still on all these Bibles, and it says fiction. So you know, he was perturbed over it, and he thought that he was getting blown off. But don't forget, at the time they probably had several 100,000 of these Bibles already imprinted with the fiction on the fiction classification on it, and they weren't about to go ahead and reclassify books just overnight. And that's so. I suppose that it could have been handled a little better. I don't know really if it was anyone at Costco's idea of a practical joke. I have heard some stories about some non-believers in various parts of the country that in the past have gone around to the bookstores, and they will grab a Bible out of the religion and religious studies group, and they'll just simply move it into the fiction group, which, yeah, it's mischievous, but also something that's not worth getting all bent out of shape about. But I mean, one of the quotes they have from the religious people, since no one in the store was willing to offer assistance, the Good Shepherd of Discovered Church snapped a photograph of the Bible and tweaked it to his flock. People are pretty shocked and upset, he told me. We are supposed to be living in an era of tolerance, but what Costco doesn't seem to be too tolerant. Yeah, actually, I think that they are tolerant, and it was just a mistake. But people have got to make such a crisis over everything. You know, it's. I wonder how long it's going to be before we start hearing the same sad old saying that, oh, people are trying to take the Christ out of Christmas. You know, I imagine that we are going to have to live with that phrase for a while longer, and also for many years. No one's really trying to take the Christ out of Christmas for those that believe. that there are probably quite a number of non-believers out there that want to take Christ out of being rammed down their throat during the holiday season. Now, if we give it a big if here, but if Jesus really was an actual person in history and everything, I don't think that any of the non-religious people believed that he was the Son of God, that he was not Christ itself. He may have been an itinerant preacher. He might have gone around and preached some good words. I mean, let's face it, if you read the Bible, especially the stuff in red, which are all things that Jesus supposedly said and commented on, then for that time in history, that would have been really quite radical. And I imagine that he probably put a few people's nose out of joint, of course, especially his fellow Jews and the Romans. Now, of course, during his time, Jesus was not a Christian. I mean, Christians really hadn't been invented yet. He was a Jew. And it's only as his tenets and his religion started to be passed word of mouth, and the things that he promoted, and some of the hyperbole of all the miracles that he supposedly did, that the religion started to take off. Anyway, like I was saying, I don't think Costco particularly did anything that was intentionally insulting to any religion. So anyway, now there's a lot being said today about the motto of the United States, "In God We Trust," and how people want to put the motto in schoolrooms, actually passed laws to paste "In God We Trust" up on the walls, over the doors and everything, and the excuse being made, the reason being made, is that automatically, as children enter the room, and they see that sign, their thoughts will automatically be drawn to that of history, and the history of the United States, and how we are a Christian nation. It's not a religious saying whatsoever. It's not a religious motto. It's just being put up there to remind the children of our heritage. Well, it's not much of a heritage, because we didn't start using "In God We Trust" until the mid-50s there, when we found, we didn't find, the government of the United States was accusing Russians of being a godless nation. They didn't believe in God, and they didn't practice any sort of religion whatsoever. So they changed our national motto to "In God We Trust," to show that we are different from those godless Russians. What most people don't realize, this was all BS by our government. No, Stalin and all the other leaders may or may not have been atheists. They may or may not have been believers or non-believers, but religion was going very hot and heavy in the communist countries. They were not godless communists. The Catholic Church was very, very popular. Catholicism was sort of reigned supreme in communist countries, but it was only us that was trying to demonize the different countries, and communism in particular, that we sort of told little lies here and there, and they're godless. Yet the spread of churches throughout Russia, and like I said, especially a Catholic type of church, it was quite immense. But I don't know if many of you take the time to watch the President of the United States give his speeches from the White House and from his podium. But he will always have his flag up beside him, and on the flag it will show the President of the seal of the President of the United States, and it has the Great Seal of the United States. Now, if you want to just throw the seal up on the screen, if you could, Jim. For the screen, I see me up close, but I don't see... there we go. Now, that's been around for, 100 years, the Great Seal. Yet, if you looked really closely on it, after all the things that they changed, nowhere does it say, "In God We Trust," on it. It gives our old motto, "E pluribus unum." Out of many comes one. We, the people, of the thing. You can reduce it down in size now. But anyway, it's interesting that they're trying to put "In God We Trust" in all the classrooms and every place else, yet the President of the United States still has a flag that says "E pluribus unum," our old saying. And it was actually, it's more true. like that, because the United States doesn't trust in God. We trust in the mighty greenback is what we do. But it's very appropriate, e pluribus unum. If you enter the building, the FBI building, and I believe even the CIA, the Great Seal, which is identical to the presidential seal, is put on the floor that everyone can walk over, and looks just like that. To be honest with you, I don't know if it's inlaid, whether it's metal or ceramic or whatever. But here it is. You walk over it, and it says, E pluribus unum. The seal that they have, every document, government document that goes out is stamped with that seal as part of the official U.S. documents. It doesn't say, "In God we trust," on those official document seal. It says, E pluribus unum. So, you know, if they're going to make changes and say, hey, you know, we now say in God we trust. Why haven't they made the Great Seal that we put on, you know, stamp all our documents with? Why haven't they changed the president's flag? So instead of the little banner, E pluribus unum, like that, it says, in God we trust. You know, it's just a question to me. I mean, how long will it be before someone gets the brilliant idea that when we see a picture of the flag of the United States of America, Old Glory, that instead of having the 50 stars on there, that they don't replace the stars with little crucifixes. So now you're going to see, instead of the stars and stripes, you're going to see crosses and stripes. Now, I don't know, wouldn't that kind of tell everyone that we're a Christian nation in no too uncertain terms? I know one thing for certain, that just about every atheist has an American flag and will display it, you know, like July the 4th and other patriotic things. But I feel pretty confident in saying that if they were to replace these stars with crosses, probably there isn't a non-believer out there that would have an American flag in their house, because under those circumstances it wouldn't be American. You know, it would be a religious nation which endorsing a religion, which is the one thing, of course, that we were trying to do when we left Europe. We were trying to get away from all the people in government and other places that were trying to shove their brand of religion down. And I mean, let's face it too. Christianity light, Christianity heavy, like Catholics. It's all just a brand. It's just a means of control over the populace. You know, we can say that Sorry, little memory lapse there. You know, we can say what we want about what type of country we are, but it is the people in the country that make the country. It is all the different beliefs, the different types of people, the different religions, the different nationalities, and e pluribus unum, out of many come one. Like that. That is our strength. Not in God we trust. And it's by us coming together and learning to live as a responsible society, believing in the welfare of our nation, that I think is the only way that really the country will truly survive. I don't know if you saw in the news in the past few days where our current Pope, he said that the Catholic Church has not been putting enough emphasis on the needy and the poor in the world, and he wants to change that, and he wants the Catholic Church to I guess not so much not focus on getting rich, but using the wealth of the Catholic Church to help people that are less fortunate. Now, you know, I would admit that in the past, I really haven't had much use for some of the popes that have been out there that we've had to suffer with. But from a non-religious standpoint, and just for the way the guy acts and the way that he thinks, I kind of like this Pope. You know, he's probably is going to do more for the Catholic Church and help bring back some of the former glory and popularity of the Catholic Church. Bring it into the present and the future, and stop focusing on things like child molesting priests and all kinds of other, you know, legal and moral outrages that have been attributed to the Catholic Church. So, you know, I give the guy a thumbs up. And I never thought I'd be saying I'd give a thumbs up to the Pope. But, hey, I'm willing to take a step back and watch the guy and see what the heck he does. And hopefully it'll turn out well for everyone. Now, if you don't mind, I'm just going to take a quick little drink here in my throat. A study of Canadian students. Well, I'll read it. According to a study of Canadian students, the more important religion is to a person, the more likely they are to lie to benefit from financial assistance. Thus they join business majors and the children of divorced couples as the most likely to lie for personal financial gain. Now, let me just read that again. According to a study of Canadian students, the more important religion is to a person, the more likely they are to lie to benefit from financial assistance. Wouldn't you really think it would go the other way? You know, you'd think that if you are religious, somewhere in the back of your head there has got to be that little voice that should be in there that is reminding you that God doesn't like this. This certainly not any attribute that Jesus would like. You would think that if you really believed in God and Jesus, that and you believed in heaven and hell, that you'd actually want to be more pious, that you'd almost reject financial gain. What does they say? It's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to go to heaven. Who knows? I don't know any rich man trying to go to heaven, and Bill Gates isn't dead yet, so he can't come back and tell us. But the study that they did appears in the this December issue of the Journal of Economic Letters. Just a little something I thought was kind of funny, that not at all what you would think. Here's another little thing. There is a writer, a religious advocate named David Barton, and he gave a speech to at an Ohio Christian university, and he was asked by an audience member who is an education major at the school how, upon graduating and getting a job, might be able to impart a Christian influence on his students without getting fired. Well, you can tell that there are always people that are bound and determined to sneak religion in where the law does not allow. There's a picture on the screen. That's obviously that's David Barton. But anyway, Barton suggested that the student get a job as an English or history teacher, because that would allow him to speak in discussions of the Bible or read Christian prayers in his classroom under the guise of simply teaching those subjects. Now, isn't that sneaky? But people are using this all the time. People, you can't circumvent people's personal beliefs with laws. I mean, obviously you want to, in many cases, because a person's personal beliefs often do not mix well with the rights of others. It seems like a person will say, no, you know, I don't like gays. It's not normal for a gay person even be allowed on the street with another gay person. It says so in the Bible, and the Bible is my truth. However, what happened to the right of the gay person, persons that are doing absolutely nothing wrong whatsoever? They are enjoying life the way that they were made by the great Creator. I mean, you'd think that if God, the Word God, created people in different ways, then true believers would embrace all the differences and not try to judge what they think that maybe God made a mistake. I mean, God couldn't possibly have created gay people, right? I mean, it says in the Bible, this is an abomination. No, it's just it's a personal choice, and has nothing to do with what God wants, and it's just man being disobedient to God. What a load of horse hockey that is. We are the way we are mostly because we were created that way, or we were forced to live in an environment that changed our perspective and our outlook on life. But I don't really think that, provided you don't hurt anyone else, physically, especially, mentally, perhaps like that, then everyone else should butt out. What business do you have of trying to live someone else's life? As the old saying goes, if it doesn't pick your pocket or break your leg, then it shouldn't matter to you. Okay, another little piece of fluff here. I don't know if you have ever heard of Sylvia Browne. She was a self-proclaimed psychic who claimed to be able to see into the past, the future, and the afterlife, and who saw many of her books ascend into the bestseller lists, and she made a ton of money off that gobbledygook. And she was in the middle of, I guess, writing another book. Well, she died Wednesday in San Jose, California. She was 77. I mean, that evidently she didn't see this one coming like that. So what can I say? Maybe that's cruel, but I've got a perverse sense of humor anyway. What else have we got here? Yeah, here's a bus driver for the Burnsville School District was fired last week for leading kids in Christian prayers on his bus, even after he was warned to stop, a move he considered a violation of his freedom of speech. George Nathaniel, 49, of Richfield, who is also a pastor, it just so happens, for a pair of Minneapolis churches, was in his second year as a school bus driver for a company under contract to the Burnsville-Egan Savage District. After receiving complaints from a district about the prayers, the bus company, Durham School Services, gave Nathaniel a warning and assigned him 2 new bus routes. And that didn't dissuade Nathaniel. I let them know that I am a pastor and I am going to pray, even though they're paying him to drive a bus and not pray. When Nathaniel continued to lead prayers on his new routes, Durham sent him a separation letter dated last October the 30th, saying there have been more complaints of religious material being left on the bus, as well as other complaints regarding performances. In accordance with the previous final written warnings you received, your employment has been terminated. In 1962, the Supreme Court ruled that it is unconstitutional for public schools to encourage or lead students in prayer. Yet here's one guy, a bus driver, who's also a pastor, that decides that federal law is not good enough for him, that he's going to do what the heck he wants, and he's going to pray, he's going to lead prayer, he's going to leave the little pamphlets on seats for the children to pick up. And there we go. There's always someone that is trying to circumvent what everyone else does. Well, I'm quite sure that he was Christian, and I feel quite certain that there were probably Jewish kids and Muslim kids on there, but he didn't seem as though he was really cared about their rights to not have someone else's religion shoved down their throat. I mean, isn't what these people came to America for? To not be forced to participate in someone else's religion, to not have to listen to other people preaching when they are actually they're a captive audience. But anyway, what I'm going to do here is it's getting on to like about 5 minutes beforehand, so I'm going to start winding down a little bit. Sorry that no one really had any questions, but please keep in mind this is just one of many more shows that we'll be doing in the future, and any time that it moves you, feel free to call in, and we'll be only too pleased to answer questions, make comments, and everything else. You might want to, if you have any questions but you don't want to speak on the television, if you look on your screen, there is an email address, askanatheistpan at gmail.com. If you send a question to that email, we will answer it on the next show. You can just put your preference of whether or not you want us to mention your name. If you don't want us to mention it, then we won't do so. I'm going to sort of close out and go into oblivion here with the following. A group, I guess you could say, of non-believers that they're called the humanists. And humanists have what they call 10 commitments. And I'm just going to read them to you. Number 1, I shall strive to promote the greater good of humanity before all selfish desires. I shall be curious, for asking questions is the only way to find answers. 3, harm to your fellow humans is harm to humanity. Therefore, I shall not kill, rape, rob, or otherwise victimize anyone. 4, I shall treat all humans as equals, regardless of religion, race, gender, age, creed, identity, orientation, physical ability, or status. 5, I shall use reason as my guide. Science, knowledge, observation, and rational analysis are the best ways to determine any course of action. 6, I shall not force my beliefs onto others, nor insist that anyone else's be the only and correct way to live happily. 7, if I should govern, I shall govern with reason, not with superstition. Religion should have no place in any government which represents all people and all beliefs. 8, I shall act for the betterment of all fellow humans and be, wherever possible, altruistic in my deeds. 9, I shall act for, I will be good to earth and its boundaries, for without it, humankind is lost. And finally, 10, I shall endeavor to impart my knowledge and wisdom gained in my lifetime to the next generation, so that with each passing century, humanity will grow wiser and more in